April the 26th, 2026. Pripyat is loud today. Brass band, funfair music, 40,000 people on the boulevard, kids queuing for candy floss under a Ferris wheel that's been turning non-stop for exactly 40 years. That wheel should be rusted solid. Reactor 4 should have exploded. Neither one happened here. 350,000 people were supposed to evacuate this region. They never left. 30 kilometers of exclusion zone, the most famous radioactive dead zone on Earth, simply doesn't exist in this timeline. So what actually happened on that April night instead? That's the whole video. First, the version you already know. 1:23 in the morning, 1986. A safety test on Reactor 4 goes wrong. Power spikes 100-fold in seconds. 2 explosions blow the 1,000-ton lid off the core and start a fire that throws fallout across Ukraine, Belarus, and much of Europe. Pripyat's 49,000 residents are evacuated 36 hours later, told to pack for 3 days, never let back. That's the real timeline. Here's the strange part. The other timeline's divergence isn't dramatic at all. Same test, same night. But the shift crew never disables the emergency cooling system and holds the reactor above the danger zone. When output dips too far, they do the unglamorous thing. Abort, log the failure, reschedule for next month. No spike, no explosion, no fire. The regional newspaper ran 11 paragraphs about it, mostly paperwork delays. Nobody outside the plant's own engineers ever learned how close it came. The least cinematic possible ending to the world's most famous nuclear near-miss. And quietly, the most likely one. So what does 40 years of nothing happening actually look like? Walk the plant today and Reactor 4 looks almost identical to its 3 sister units. A squat, grey turbine hall, a single striped chimney visible for miles. No sarcophagus, no containment arch. Because there was never a molten core to bury. The near miss still changed things technically. A continent-wide review eliminated the RBMK's dangerous flaw in every reactor still running by 1990. Chernobyl's own units kept the lights on for decades, retiring on schedule, the last in 2017, replaced by 2 modern reactors on the same site. Almost 6,000 people still clock in here today, like it's nothing. Then there's the wheel, that exact Ferris wheel, the one that in our history got switched on once briefly for a photo nobody planned to take, and became the most recognizable image of nuclear disaster on Earth, opened here for real, right on schedule, 1986. It's been turning every summer since, repainted twice, new gondolas in 2009. The opening ceremony ribbon is still preserved under glass in the town hall lobby. Local kids call it the first ride, because it was. Same wheel, wildly different photograph. Ask a teenager here about 1986 and most just shrug. For them, it's the year the park opened, not a catastrophe they had to be born after. That's the whole trick of a disaster that never happened. Nobody has to remember it. The rest of Pripyat grew up around that wheel exactly as planned. Lenin Avenue is still the main boulevard, lime trees now 40 years taller than any blueprint, balconies strung with laundry and satellite dishes. School number 1, once destined to be a horror movie set of scattered gas masks, graduated its 10,000th student 2 years ago. The pool never drained. It's hosted the regional youth championships every June for 40 years. Population today, just over 81,000, nearly double 1986. Swollen by decades of families, drawn here by steady plant salaries and cheap housing. New neighborhoods went up in the 2000s, along with a technical university training nuclear engineers for plants across the region. Real estate listings mention good schools, a 5-minute walk to the park, and never once the word that, in our timeline, would define this postcode forever. Here's the part nobody expects. The region has no accidental wildlife sanctuary. The famous wolves and wild horses that reclaimed the real exclusion zone were never released, because nobody ever had to evacuate the land. The river has fishermen on it most mornings. Kids swim off a public beach every July. The infamous red forest, killed by radiation in our history, is here just an ordinary forest. Pine, birch, logged on a normal rotation like any other stand in the region. Ecologists will tell you, a little sheepishly, that this land is actually less biodiverse than the real exclusion zone became, which means the catastrophe that never happened here made worse habitat than the catastrophe that did happen there. Economically, the region became exactly what Soviet planners drew up on paper back in the 1970s, an energy town. Ukraine's grid still draws real winter power from the plant's modernized reactors, and the surrounding oblast built an industry supplying parts to nuclear operators as far as Finland. Chernobyl, in this timeline, isn't a byword for catastrophe. It's a brand stamped on equipment shipped to reactors elsewhere. There's a dark irony to it. The disaster that never happened here is part of why disasters kept not happening anywhere else either. Without Chernobyl as a global warning, the nuclear build-out of the 1980s barely slowed. Reactor projects cancelled for a decade in our history got built on schedule instead. Global nuclear power's share of electricity, which peaked and then declined for a generation in our timeline, kept climbing here instead. Anti-nuclear movements in Germany and Japan never got the searing image that made them mainstream. Both countries' phase-out debates went very differently. Nuclear engineers half a world away, at plants they will never visit, are quietly safer today. Because one shift crew, one ordinary night, chose the boring shutdown over the schedule. The near miss does get remembered, just modestly. A 3-room museum near the plant walks visitors through the shift log from that night. It gets a few hundred visitors a year, mostly engineering students, not the 200,000 who tour the real exclusion zone annually in our world. A bronze plaque outside the turbine hall credits the crew with, in typical Soviet understatement, exemplary adherence to operating procedure. No mass grave for firefighters, no radiation ward name-checked in every documentary. Just a plaque most residents walk past without reading. Back on Lenin Avenue, the festival is winding down. Someone's grandmother is selling vareniki from a folding table by the Palace of Culture. The Ferris wheel keeps its slow turn against the same orange sky as every photo of the real frozen one. Just 40 years younger and still moving. 81,000 people who simply got to keep their city. That's the whole story. And maybe the strangest ending of all.